All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott from Jeff Teaches Programming. And in the last video, we started going over the layout of what our PayrollASP.NET program is going to look like. And I'm going to be doing this probably very methodically. So in this video, what I hope to do is twofold. First, I want to go over this file right here. And this file, I started to work on it, but then I had problems with the taping. So this is the program.cs file. The program.cs file is, of course, the application entry point for the program. It's going to configure any services we need and set up, in our case, the HTTP request pipeline. So we do need some using statements in here. So let's do a using Microsoft.EntityFrameworkCore, a using PayrollASP.NET data, using PayrollASP.NET services. Well, it doesn't like that one. I don't know why. Might be because we have to come in here into our project, not into here, into our project, and add a reference. That's interesting. Look at what we have here. Oh, no, I did the right one. Boy, oh boy. Not sure why we're not getting in here. It's not understanding services, which we're going to need. All right, well, for now, let's comment this line out. How's that? And let me explain what we're doing. All right. The entity framework core hopefully just makes sense. The payroll ASP.NET.data, that provides access to that DB context file that we're going to need. This services is going to provide access to the employee service file. Now, did we put that file in here? I thought we did, and we did. Why wouldn't it understand that? We added data just as we added services. But if you look at this, when we put that in, and I'm not sure why it's doing that, payroll ASP.NET see, it has controllers, it has data, and it has view models, but it is not showing us services. I don't know why. Let's see. It says the type or namespace. Are you missing a reference? I don't want to remove it. I do want the reference, but it's not letting me see it. Find all references. Okay. Project reference. It's not showing these here. It's just showing future value. There shouldn't be a services in here because that's my own. Huh. I'll have to try to figure that out, but as of right now, I'm not sure what the problem with that is, but we'll look at it and see if we can figure it out. All right, so taking it from the top then, we've got here var builder equals web application dot create builder args. Now, This file was created for us manually when we created the project. This is going to create what's called a web application builder. This will set up the configuration that we need, any logging we need, all right, and it'll use the default settings and the default command line arguments, all right. So the next thing we have in here is we've got var builder equals web application dot create builder args, all right. Well, it's kind of what I just mentioned. Okay, that's going to create the builder. Then we've got builder.services, so we're calling one of the routines for builder. All right, that'll register our MVC services. It'll allow the controllers and the Razor views to have the support they need. All right, this will allow the app to handle HTTP requests that are going to be routed to the controller. All right, and in response, it'll render the .cs HTML view templates. Okay, then next, we're going to add a line in here. All right. So this is incomplete as it is. We're going to put in here builder.services let's see, what do we got here? Add controllers with views. Yeah, we already did that. But here we want to say builder.services.addDB_context, and that'll be payroll DB context. And then we're going to say options, and I'm going to go on to a new line so you can see everything that I'm typing in here. So options, oops, I don't know what the heck happened there, but it'll work in a second. Options dot use SQL server builder dot configuration dot get connection string, and that connection string is going to be the name of our database, which we will call, how about this, payroll ASP DB. Okay, I just made that up right now. All right, and a semicolon on the end here. Now, it looks like it doesn't like something in here, so let's see if we did something incorrectly. What this is doing is it's registering the payroll DB context with EFCore using SQL Server. The connection string is going to be read from appsettings.json, and we have to fix that file. That's probably why we're getting the error. Add DB context is going to, there'll be one instance of this per HTTP request. So we've got builder.services.addDB_context, payroll DB context, looks good, options. Options.useSQL server, builder.configuration.get connection string, and that'll be payroll, whatever we call it, which will be payroll ASPDB. Okay, now please don't let the fact that we've got an error there throw you at all. And what I mean by that is I think that error is going to go away once we fix the appsettings.json file in just a bit. All right. Next, we want to register the employee service. Okay. And a new instance of this is going to be created once per HTTP request, and it'll be shared within that request. In other words, or for example, across the controller and any services that it calls. So now we are going to say builder dot services dot add scoped, and what we're going to be adding in here is going to be the employee service. We're just trying to make sure everything we have in here can communicate with everything we have in here. Now that error we're getting because this file, for some reason, we're not being allowed to bring that in right now. That's why we're getting that error. All right, because it doesn't know what it means because we don't have the services in. We're going to have to try to fix that. All right, then next we've got here var app equals builder.build. That'll build the web application using all registered services and configurations. All right. Next, we have in here app.use HTTPS redirection and app.use static files. Well, what we want to do in here is set up this HTTP request pipeline. All right. This is middleware. This is kind of the stuff that's working behind the scenes, and it has to be done in this order. So first we use the HTTPS redirection, and that's going to redirect all HTTP requests to go to HTTPS. And again, the idea is that'll enforce more secure communications. Then we've got the use static files. That'll allow us to serve static files. In other words, what's in our www root. In other words, our CSS files, our JavaScript files, any images we might have, etc. All right, without having to go through this pipeline. All right, then next, we've got this use routing. That'll allow or enable routing middleware. That'll match any incoming request URLs to the defined controller. All right. Then finally at the end here, all right, we want to define the default MVC controller route pattern. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to rechange this. I'm going to make a home controller here. And again, I'll just make it empty. And I'm going to call it home controller, as they got right here. So we've got a home one. Why did I do that? Because it's expecting that by default, it's going to be using this home controller. All right. And if I didn't have something like that in there, again, I could give me another reason for it to give me an error. All right. So the controller will default to home if we don't specify it in the URL. The action will default to index if we don't specify it in the URL. The ID is optional. That's what in the curly braces with a question mark afterwards, meaning it's optional. So we can use it to pass, for example, an employee record. Let's say that we want to do an edit and we want to edit record 6. We could say, basically we could put that in there, employee/edit/6. All right. Finally, we want to start the application and begin listing for any incoming HTTP requests. So that's it for that file. Let's look at the other file. So I'm going to do a file save as. I realize we've got a couple mistakes in here. So file save all. I'm hoping that one of them will go away after we fix this appsettings.json file. All right. Okay. The first thing we have in here, we're going to add some information to this file. All right. Because right now it doesn't know anything about our database. Remember, this file we have in here instead of the app.config file. Okay, so I'm going to go back to home and I'm going to hit enter a couple times. And I'm going to start working on this file. So I'm going to put in here, oops. connection strings, colon, and then we're going to put a curly brace in here, and we're going to put a bunch of stuff in here for our connections. Don't worry, don't let that bother you that we're getting an error right now. Just give me a second to, to get all this. Come on. What's going on here? All right. So we want to come in and we want to set all of this information up in this file. All right. So let me come in and start doing that. All right. I've got my notes here in front of me, which I just unfortunately dropped on the floor. So they're all messed up, but we're going to get them together right now. Okay. This is where the connection string is now going to live. So we've got this. The first thing we want to do is give it the name of our database. Again, we want to make sure we call it the same thing. So PayrollASPDB. So I'm going to copy that, come back into here. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and say, inside of here, PayrollASPDB, the name of our database. All right. Okay. Now, for now, we're going to run this from our machine. So just like before, we're going to say server equals local DB backslash MS SQL local DB database equals, this is where we put in the name of our database. Oops, don't want to do that. Okay. I'm going to change this. I'm just going to type in here, payroll database. And in here, that's going to be PayrollASPDB. We're not done yet. Trusted connection equal true, and trust server certificate equal true. All right, that should be everything. Spelled certificate wrong. All right. And here, we need that. All right. Doesn't look very good right now, but we're working on it here. All right, the connection string for our payroll database we have connection strings, all right, colon, and then in curly braces, payroll database, colon, then server equals local DB backslash MS SQL local DB database equal payroll ASPDB. Trusted connection is true and trusted certificate is true. Now, I'm not going to worry about, errors or whatever that I've gotten here right now for just a second. Why it's doing that? It's not allowing me to hit enter here, but for whatever reason. All right. So after this one, I want a comma. And I'm going to get rid of this. All right, Now, we've got logging, log level equal, default information, Microsoft ASP.NET Core warning, allowed hosts. All right, so let's talk about what all of this stuff means. And hopefully, also, we'll be able to go in and get rid of the errors that we currently have. All right, so the connection string defines the database connection strings that are going to be used by the application. All right, so this payroll database will be the primary connection string for the payroll SQL Server database. It's going to be using local DB. We talked about this before. This is a lightweight SQL Server instance we use for development. All right. The name of the specific database to connect to is going to be PayrollASPNet-08. EFCore migrations will create this if it does not exist, and we'll do that in a bit. The trusted connection equals true means use Windows connection instead of a username and a password. And the trust server certificate equals true bypasses using an SSL certificate validation. All right. You don't use that when you're working on a local machine. Okay. So, payroll database. So all that stuff looks correct. The logging stuff will configure any logging that we have for any parts of the application. All right. By default, we're going to set a minimum logging level for all application code. Okay. The startup information, we're basically just saying, show us any warnings. The Microsoft ASP.NET Core overrides the log level specifically for ASP.NET Core. The allowed host that you see in there restricts which HTTP host headers the application will accept. That means that the application will accept requests from any host name. In production, you could restrict this, all right, to who had access and who did not have access to it. All right. With all that said, let's work our way in here and see what the heck we have going on now. All right. I'll have to fix this. This one we know about. This one, well, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop right here and try to debug these two errors. And I'm hoping that once I debug those two, that's going to fix some of the warnings that we're getting in here. We're not getting any errors, but we're getting warnings. It says only one top level is allowed in here. I'm still looking to see what I can see for a problem in here, but we'll work on this. We'll see if we can get it to work in just a couple minutes, okay? Looking at curly, 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 curly. Looks like there's one curly here that doesn't have a match. All right, I'll be back, hopefully to fix this up in just a few minutes.